Welcome back to Coast Vue. As I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we're going to shift gears now and go to my friend Ashley Edwards, who's the president and CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council. He's a regular contributor here on Coast Vue. And we'll get an update from the Business Council, but as we normally do, there's a wide variety of conversations we can have. But without any further ado, let me just welcome you back to Coast Vue, my friend.
Hey, Ricky, thanks for having me today.
Good. Hey, listen, we'll get the latest on the Business Council, but I know that I had the opportunity to see you join SuperTalk and discuss sort of your view of Twitter. You and I have exchanged some points of view about that. And let me tell you what I think one of the most fascinating things is going to be, and then I'll get your take on it as well. But the fact that, first of all, we tend to focus too much on free speech. And as I mentioned in the beginning of the show, free speech does not mean that you can go into a crowded movie theater and scream fire. I mean, obviously, there's still going to be limitations to what people can do.
Right.
The notion of banning people for life will probably go away, but that doesn't mean people won't get banned along the way. And if they continue to not live up to the standards, they'll be dealt with in an appropriate way. But one of the most interesting things about this is this. Social media has developed algorithms that feed into the artificial intelligence that determine what all of our news feeds are. I am convinced, because I came from this arena, I understand how it works, and I've been involved with SuperTalk now for a couple of years. I can tell you the day that SuperTalk began to get minimized in the algorithm because they were identified as a conservative radio station, a collection of radio stations. Already we're noticing some difference, even though the sale's not happened, already noticing some differences in the way that video and other posts would be viewed prior to where it was before and where it is now on Twitter. So you can begin to see that some of it's already beginning to get loosened up, but it's going lifting up the kimono is going to give us all an opportunity to see how bias can go into these algorithms, and it can cause some people to have a bigger voice and others to have lesser voice. That's not a good thing. And I think, at the end of the day, that's what Elon Musk is doing. He's saying we can't do that. We've got to figure out a way. It's not about giving crazies a platform, but it's about putting people up there on an equal footing. That's what free speech is all about. I think that's going to be one of the most, there's a lot of chapters to this, a lot of angles to this, but to me, that's one of the most interesting elements of this. What do you think?
Yeah, I think you're right about that, Ricky. Elon Musk is so fascinating, and, we sort of look at everything through our own lens. And so when we hear in the national media, Elon Musk has purchased Twitter, he's big on free speech, the initial assumption that everybody makes is, oh, well, he's talking about Trump being banned from Twitter. And I think you're absolutely correct. It's so much deeper and more expansive than just sort of the base level narrative on this. I mean, he's looking at, what is what are the coders in the code behind Twitter? What are they doing to try to prevent spam and the algorithmic lessening of voices? Elon Musk is a globalist. He's as focused on what's happening in China as he is in the United States. And so he has every reason to want to deliver a product that can be monetized such that it can get past the censorship in places like China where Twitter is not available. So, when Elon Musk is talking about what he's trying to do with Twitter, and one of the, I think, key takeaways that anybody should remember on this is, yes, Elon Musk did use a lot of his own money to buy Twitter, but he also financed a lot of it with banks. And he took to those banks a revenue creation plan that would fundamentally reshape the way that Twitter makes money. And so, why is Elon Musk in this? Is he in this because he wants to make sure that Donald Trump gets back on Twitter? I would say probably not. I think Elon Musk is in this to grow Twitter, to try to eliminate some of the things that have caused criticisms, and then ultimately to monetize it. He is a businessman. Yeah. So listen, I think you're absolutely correct about what you say.
I think, you and I tend to read a lot, and we tend to focus on a lot of similar things. And I know of you that I am a bit of an Elon Musk follower. I pay close attention to what he's done. And, if you study what he's done, of all the things he's involved in, space exploration and, obviously building incredible cars, that I think are important, and the technology that he's developed is going to be really important from a renewable energy point of view. What he's doing in the battery area, I mean, we could go on and on. I mean, he's doing Neuralink, where they're talking about linking people's brains with computers. Initially, they'll be using it for physical disabilities and things like that. He doesn't have a strong belief that one day that our thinking is going to be changed by a computer. That's way out into the future.
Right.
But of all the things he's involved in, and you've heard him talk about this before, that the one thing he's most concerned about is artificial intelligence and what's happening with artificial intelligence, and why it is a real and present danger, and we better be focused on it. He said, look, we have airplanes are monitored and regulated by the FAA. And he says not having an FAA equivalent for artificial intelligence is a major, major problem, and we better be focused on this. And so therefore, when you think about artificial intelligence and how social media companies like Facebook and others, Twitter included, have been using artificial intelligence to determine our news feeds, minimizing certain speech, exacerbating other speech, so that political agendas and all of that, that's real. That's happening. He knows that's happening. And he thinks that there's been a threat to democracies around the world as a result of it. And it's been a threat to societies around the world as a result of it. And what he's going to do to lead in this domain is going to change really the course of history and social media in general around the world. It's that significant. That's what I believe.
Well, Ricky, someone asked me just a few days ago, they said, why are you so interested in Elon Musk? Why do you read all about this guy? And, I'm a big baseball fan. And so I'm fascinated by the guy that wins the National League or American League MVP. What does it take for a guy to be the most valuable player on their team, right? Elon Musk, for years now, has been trying out to be MVP of humanity. And that's the kind of guy I want to understand. What makes him tick? What's he thinking about? He thinks so many levels deeper than most people do. And, you look at how he's created the various companies he's created. I mean, you have a guy here who really wants to have some sort of a monopoly on transportation on the earth and transportation off the earth, sort of all the things that come to bear with that. And that's a fascinating thing. I mentioned PayPal. He was pushed out as CEO of PayPal, not because PayPal was underperforming, but because he wanted PayPal to eliminate the banking system in the world. He wanted to get people to keep their money in PayPal such that it could become the primary bank of humanity. And some of those that was a little too far out there for his board. And so it's fascinating to see what this guy's thinking. But I think you're right. It's amazing that he's now concentrated on social media. And, I think we'll wake up 5 years from now and see the incredible cultural changes that have been made in social media as a result of the leadership he's going to provide this industry. And, let's not forget, he is a huge critic of Facebook, and I am too. So I'm interested to see what he thinks on a lot of that.
It's going to be very fascinating. Hey, let's shift gears. What I want to do in the second part of the show, the last segment, is I want to share some of those leadership challenges that I shared at the One Coast Awards and just kind of get your thoughts about it. But before we get done with this segment, why don't you kind of give me an update on what you're working on at the Business Council these days?
Well, one of the really exciting new initiatives that we've got going right now, Ricky, is we are looking at trying to put some real tangible, comprehensive plan around how we attract new residents, new talent, new workforce to come into our area. We're working with Brandon Elliott of Elliott Homes. You know Brandon quite well. He's a real thought leader here, and especially in that regard. And we're getting ready to launch a new program that'll be launching in May, where we're going to spend the rest of the year really diving down into this issue of, what is a comprehensive strategy for getting people that aren't currently looking at the Mississippi Gulf Coast to consider relocating here, bringing their families here, coming and being good citizens, part of our workforce, part of our tax base. Those are the types of things I think that we're going to have to continue to focus on as time goes on, because we're living incredible changes right now. Our economy's changing in front of our eyes. The drivers of population growth are changing in front of our eyes, and keep in mind, we've done very well on the coast as it relates to population growth. I mean, we continue to outpace the rest of the state. Shad White, state auditor, had a really interesting op-ed in the newspaper not long ago, and he was talking about the number of college graduates that are ending up in the three coastal counties, and the number of graduates in healthcare sciences that are ending up in the coast hospitals. And so, really, it's incumbent upon the coast to figure out ways that we can double down. If we're seeing those types of results without any real coordinated strategic effort to try to drive them, what could we do if we were very strategic about it?
It's to me, it fits all the conversations you and I were having before the pandemic about the new economy and the creative class and all that. I had a one hour program with my son Justin, who works in New York, who wrote a column about truly hybrid work and what he learned during the pandemic. We'll pick it up on the other side, but he's not alone. His entire age class has a different view now of how they look at quality of life, and we better pay attention to it. In there, big opportunities for coastal Mississippi. We'll see you on the other side. Welcome back to Coast Vue. We have Ashley Edwards, the president CEO of the Gulf Coast Business Council, with us. And Ashley, I'm thrilled to hear this from a strategic point of view. You guys are going to be focused on a program that will attract people here. I mentioned before we went to a break that my son Justin wrote a piece called "Truly Hybrid Work," and what he learned. Listen, in his whole entire friends group, which is rather large in New York, he is the only one who did not change jobs during the pandemic. He's the only one.
Yeah.
And because the opportunities are immense for them, and any employer who doesn't understand what young people have learned about, like Justin used to be on the road. He was on the road during the week, going back to an empty hotel room during the pandemic. He was actually able to spend time with his friend groups, able to do other things that he wasn't able to do before. He began to redefine what quality of life really means, because in his fast-paced consultative world he was in, he never really got a chance to do that. It was kind of work all the time. But then he also got an opportunity to understand how important the work relationships were. So getting back in some quasi-hybrid role, so he could sit and see people in their face, see customers in their face, and have conversations and build relationships. That was important. But they expect both now, buddy. And as a result of it, they can now just about live anywhere they want to live.
Yeah, and the labor market is wide open, so they can find jobs anywhere as well. Yeah.
You hear about California folks coming to Mississippi and buying where they would have to pay $400 and $500 and $600 a square foot, coming here and paying $150, $200 a square foot for a house. I mean, that message is beginning to grow far and wide, and I think it's terrific that the Gulf Coast Business Council is going to lead an effort in this regard. There really are big opportunities, aren't there?
Well, we actually talked to a professional services firm CEO the other day, and he was talking about remote work. That wasn't really the gist of our conversation in the beginning, but we got on that tangent. And he said something that was really interesting to me. He said, remote work is the best thing that's ever happened to us in terms of attracting talent. He said, because all of our competitor firms have made their employees go back to the office. He said, so we're recruiting them left and right.
Yeah,
and taking advantage of that. They continue to remote work, infrastructure in their company, and it's really interesting that that's become one of the new ways to compete for talent within these industries is go find the competitors that are making folks go back to the office and then recruit their employees. But I mean, it goes exactly to what you said. There's just a different expectation now. We have seen such a fundamental change in the psyche of our workforce in 24 months' time. I think it's absolutely incredible to me, and I think if people really sat and thought about it and looked around at what's happening, we're in a whole new ballgame now.
Worldwide study that was done, over 50% of people in their current jobs were either planning to leave or thinking hard about leaving.
That's right.
Think about it, buddy. That's pretty significant. Hey, let's shift gears before we get done. I had the opportunity to do a challenge, a keynote at the One Coast Awards, and I've been having conversations with each of the winners as they came on the show. But I've essentially said what you and I have talked about many times, that we got to work hard to fight the gravity toward mediocrity. We can't have a protect the status quo approach here. Every community fights this. We fight it as well. We have to fight our biggest enemy, which is complacency, that we're always going to have Chevron and Ingalls. We're always going to have Stennis. We're always going to have the gaming industry. We better not take that point of view. We will lose. And we don't have enough leaders that get it. I said that fast, but those are three huge challenges we have, aren't they?
Well, yeah, I mean they're absolutely correct. I think it's something that people really understand coast-wide. I think the biggest question sometimes is who's going to be responsible for changing it. Who's got the ball? And it's a question that we've been asking a lot over the years because there's, the coast is a complicated place. We don't have a centralized government. So we have got, lots of people doing lots of things spread out across 80 some odd miles of coastline. And somewhere in all of that, there are the makings of a region that can be incredibly competitive on the national scene. I think we have everything we need here on the coast to be one of the top growing regions in the United States, but it is not going to happen organically. I mean, it's going to take real intentional effort. It's going to take leadership. It's going to take accountability. It's going to take all the things that oftentimes people don't want to talk about. But on the same note, I applaud what you've been doing and talking about this. The words that you said at the One Coast Awards got widely shared, and it brought a smile to my face because I think it's in many ways you're really getting to the heart of the matter, and so much we can get into the minutia of so many different things and issues, but at the end of the day, what you're talking about I think is really what's going to matter ultimately for our success or failure here on the coast.
You made this point on Coast Vue before, and we're almost to the end. But we have to, in order to advance, in order to raise the bar, we have to be honest about our vulnerabilities. We don't do a good job of talking about our weaknesses. We just don't, and we've got to get better at that. We have to actually see that as a strength to discuss our weaknesses, not a weakness. But political figures and others, just for whatever reason, it's in their effort to protect the status quo, whatever it is. They don't want to hear bad feedback. We got to get better at being honest about our vulnerabilities, don't we?
No question about it. I've heard people, for example, in the economic development world, talk about, well, we don't want to air our dirty laundry. Well, trust me, if a company's looking at making an investment here, they know the dirty laundry better than we do sometimes. So the best thing we can do is be prepared to address those things, not to sweep them under the rug.
I'm thrilled that you guys are focused on it as it relates to this huge economic opportunity. It's not about one industry. It's about attracting people, and what do they want to see? They want to see the kind of cities that we're building here in coastal Mississippi. Hey, we'll look forward to chatting with you again in the near future, Ashley.
Thank you, Ricky. Always good to be with you.
This has been Ashley Edwards from the Business Council. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow.